Group. This is my business partner, Joshua Gray. Josh, you want to go ahead and give a brief introduction?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. So we'll actually be covering the real estate portion. Said did a great job with the commercial real estate portion. So give you some background about me. My name, once again, Joshua Gray. I'm a native of Atlanta, so happy 404 Day to all those who celebrate. I actually, product of Atlanta Public Schools, K through 12. I graduated from the mayor's alma mater, Benjamin Elijah Mays High School.
Talking about Maynards?
What's that?
What's the color?
Blue and gold.
Oh, okay.
That's it. I graduated from the University of Miami, where I studied electrical engineering. When I moved back to Atlanta, I worked I still do, in the industrial automation industry. And I received my MBA from Georgia State, the J. Mack Robinson College of Business. So I know there's some Panthers in the room. Yep, okay, right. So very true to Atlanta. So I have about 8 years of professional sales experience. I earned my real estate license. I'm a licensed agent for our company. I did that back in 2021. And I'm also the HOA president in my subdivision. So we have about 330 properties. So I highly recommend you all as well. Should you purchase your first property, and we'll talk about that later in the session, definitely try to get involved with your community. And being on your HOA board, you will learn a lot, not only about the inner and outer workings of how a HOA is run. So who knows what HOA stands for? Let me back up.
Homeowner association.
All right, cool. So essentially, you need to understand what the local laws are. You need to understand how your neighbors are impacted by a lot of decisions that you make. So I am president of the board, we're a board of 7 people, and I'll turn it over to John.
All right, great job. So I am John Clark. I am actually from Thomasville, Georgia. Anybody in here heard of Thomasville, Georgia? You okay, great. So yes, I'm from Thomasville, Georgia, right on the Georgia-Florida line on top of Tallahassee, Florida. I grew up in Thomasville, great childhood, and then I went to school at Savannah State University. I graduated from Savannah State University, and I'm gonna be a little controversial here. The original Georgia State. Google Savannah State name changes and you'll see, 1932. So yes, Google that, you'll see. but it's all love. But yeah, went to Savannah State University, graduated with a degree in accounting, and I have been working, I graduated 2007, so similar to Mr. Cedric's speech, graduated 2007, had a great job working for General Electric straight out of college. It was a rotation program, they were moving me around. I was in Schenectady, New York at first, and then they moved me back here to Atlanta, and then 2008, recession hit, laid off. It was a rough time coming out of college, because your mindset is, you go off, everyone's telling you growing up, go off to college, get your degree, do the right things, you get a job, you be set. Nowhere in that does anyone bring up anything about the potential of being laid off. But yeah, similar to Mr. Cedric, ended up having to, figure it out during the time, got laid off. I was laid off for like 7 or 8 months. Ended up taking a job at with the Atlanta Braves, where I was basically the beer inventory supervisor for a season with the Braves. But hey, it was the only work you could find during that time. I had to find whatever, because everyone knows it's easier to find a job when you have a job. So it was something to have on my resume during the time, and I worked that season with the Braves. It was actually a great experience, and I was still doing accounting because I was doing inventory. So it was a great experience. But after that, got a call, similar to Mr. Cedric, got a call from Bank of America. They wanted me to come work at one of their IRS lockbox departments, operations that they have. And so was working there. They initially hired me to scan checks. Once again, just trying to get work, right? I was scanning checks for IRS payments for about 3 months, and then they came to me and said, hey, we see something else in you. Are you open to being a business analyst? Sure, I'm trying to get paid more. I'm trying to rebound from this past year and a half of this recession. So yeah, so I was able to get that position within 3 months of working at the IRS lockbox with Bank of America. And from there, I stayed at Bank of America for 2 years. Then I went to another company called Ceridian. But before I go to my time at Ceridian, I actually at Bank of America, during the recession, I remember when I got laid off. The biggest thing that stood out to me was I never want to rely on a 9 to 5 to pay my bills. I never want to solely rely on a 9 to 5 to pay my bills. it was one of the eye-opening things. Cause like I said, my mindset was, hey, I went off to college, I was an undergraduate, I got my degree, I did the right thing, I stayed out of trouble. I was always told I always worked. But, you know, like I said, the realities of life after college is you can get laid off, and especially in the state of Georgia, you can get laid off at any point in time. So, but yeah, so that was a mindset that I had after going through the recession and trying to rebound back. So I worked at Bank of America, and then I ended up getting hired on at Ceridian. And ironically, I met a lady, another lady that was already there. And we were just co-workers, being business analysts. And she came up to me one day, like, and we had talked about real estate before because I inherited a property from my mom when my mom passed away in 2005. So I already had a little bit of experience of, like, me and my sister held on to the property. So we rented it out. We still rent it out to this day. Rented out, paid off the mortgage on it, still rented it out to this day. But so I had a little bit of experience there. But I always knew I kind of liked real estate, just never jumped into it all the way. But met this nice young lady at my other company, Ceridian. And she actually came up to me one day randomly, and we had spoke about real estate a little bit, but she came to me one day randomly. She was like, hey, I put in too many offers on some properties. She was like, I want to offer you one of them if you're open to it before I just release it back out there. She was like, here's the information about it. You can go by and look at it. Here's the lockbox information and stuff. And this was in 2012, so the housing market was still very low, basically. They were begging people to buy houses back during that time. So it was a townhouse over in Stone Mountain, and it was for $20,000. A 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse in Stone Mountain for $20,000. And so yeah, she had put an offer on that one and another one around the corner. The one around the corner, she was like, they're both pretty good. She was like, I just can't afford to get both of them right now. So she was like, you know, go look at it, see if you're interested. So I went and looked at it, and it was nothing major wrong with it. Literally, I think because I did end up ultimately getting the property. Just to finish that part off, I did get the property. But it was nothing wrong with it. I think I ended up putting, when I got it, maybe another $2,000-$3,000 into it, trying to just fresh carpet and paint. Started immediately renting that out. So that was the start of my real estate journey on my own, trying to figure out real estate on my own, and from there continued to buy other properties. And I also continued to network with her and met other friends. And along that time, I met Josh. We kept having conversations and started talking about our backgrounds and how we felt about real estate and how it was impacting our local communities and what we were seeing and how we wanted to see if we can be impactful and make any type of change. So that's a little bit about me. I know I went a little bit longer than I probably should have, but that is how we ultimately became friends first, and then we kept talking and ended up becoming business partners, and JJRE Group was formed. So JJRE Group established in 2019. We acquire, renovate, rent, sell residential properties in the Metro Atlanta area. We work with first-time home buyers, renters, investors, contractors, and students, which is a lot of you. All right. Our mission is we strive to provide safe and affordable housing for marginalized communities while improving underfunded areas by building a socially responsible real estate network. So right there, I'm gonna pause real quick. Any questions so far from anyone? Go ahead.
So the whole townhouse was $20,000?
Yes.
Like to buy it?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I'll show it to you after the presentation. I still have the pictures in my phone. All right, yes.
Was it a tax lien property or was it direct from the
It was direct from, everything was foreclosures back then. The banks were trying to get them off their books, and like that wasn't even the cheapest property I bought. I bought another property about a year later in Macon for $10,000. Like houses were just dirt cheap back then, and it was completely clear because everyone was foreclosing. So banks were trying to get them off the books.
You paid all cash for each property though?
Mostly. I did some creative financing along the way. Creative finance, but yes, up front, yes, I used some savings from a 401k and I pulled that out and bought the property. Yep. Any other questions? I saw some other hands up. Yep.
Wait, how much did you sell that property for?
So, great question. Okay, so I bought it in 2012 and I held on to it for 4 or 5 years, and it ultimately sold. I sold it in 2016 or 2017, somewhere around there. I sold it for $80,000, but I collected rent on it also during that whole time. During all of those years, they had very low maintenance on it. I didn't have to replace anything major on it, so it paid for itself in those years, and everything I sold it for was straight profit, basically. And then ultimately, I wish I might have held on to it a little bit longer, because now those same properties are selling for $180,000. But yeah, but I used that money that I sold it and I invested in other real estate, so all is well. Yes.
Hello, my name
Hello.
is Tiara. I'm fairly new to real estate, so just learning the terms and everything, it's just a learning process for me. But when talking about affordable housing, specifically in the real estate sector, what are the kind of like, not policy, but what are the agents, like stakeholders in making sure a housing place is affordable for regular, or not regular citizens, but people in low income areas? Like, what agents do you guys work with to ensure that it is affordable? Because I was talking earlier to this woman, she was working with T Dallas, and just talking about like, how does policy affect it? And it's like, most developers is where the money is, so it's kind of like, policy really doesn't do much as far, but just think, coming from New York, like, I know how big the government is with making sure there's affordable housing. So how do you guys kind of maneuver that sector?
So we do have partnerships, and it's a couple of questions with that, but we do have like a partnership with the Atlanta Housing Authority, where we work with them a lot of times with a lot of properties that we have, so that we can control and negotiate with them on rent and what's affordable, what they're agreeing to pay on behalf of the tenant, and what the tenant's portion is. So we do work directly with them. And then also the other side of that is a lot of like the local municipalities, the state government, they set a lot of those parameters, because yes, the affordable housing phrase, like I say it's a phrase because a lot of places, they do end up having to, like it's they say based off a percentage.
Yeah.
But when you base things off percentage, it depends on what is the base price you're starting at, right?
Exactly.
So it can get gray, but directly with our business, we work with authorities like the housing authorities in East Point, City of Atlanta, to try to make sure that we're providing safe, affordable housing for those tenants. Yeah. Any other bill?
So basically, are you guys using the Housing Choice voucher program for some of your properties, or are y'all doing, tenant TBRA?
The Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a quick question, are y'all doing any like Section 8 through the city?
That's the housing. That's the housing voucher. Yep. That is that. Yep. All right. Great questions. All right. We're gonna continue on. So today we're gonna go over some objectives. The first objective is we're gonna learn about real estate fundamentals. We're gonna go through and define a lot of things. Like you said, you're early on with it, so we're gonna define a lot of the different titles in real estate. And then we're gonna go through and do explore career and investment opportunities in real estate. Then we're gonna gain some practical steps into getting started. There's a bunch of different ways to enter residential real estate, so we'll go through those three. All right, next up, we have what is real estate? Anybody wanna just take a stab at it? What is real estate? What is it to you? Anybody wanna take a stab?
Property.
Go ahead.
Property.
Okay, yes.
An asset?
An asset, correct, yep. Anybody else? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just read the definition. So real estate refers to property, correct? Property consisting of land and any structures attached to it, including buildings, houses, and natural resources like water, minerals, or crops. It encompasses a broad market that includes buying, selling, leasing, developing properties for various areas. So let me go ahead and go to the next slide. So yes, so that's what real estate is. And actually, so there are different types of real estate. We just heard about commercial real estate. So I won't go back through that definition again, but of course, basically, it generates revenue. And then you have residential. That's the most common real estate. You know, that's the real estate that we all stay in or provide housing to and to rent out to tenants. And then land. Land refers to underdeveloped or minimally developed property that can be used for various purposes, including residential, commercial, agricultural, or industrial development. All right, next up. Well, any questions there? All right, so next up, we're gonna talk about some of the career paths and opportunities in real estate. Real estate agent. I know everyone knows what a real estate agent is. That's the most, It's a lot of people that get the license, a lot of people that here have the license and, you know, are signing up and getting their course credits today. It is a professional, licensed professional who helps buyers, sellers, and renters navigate real estate transactions. And then we have a real estate broker. Mr. Cedric, that's what he was talking about. He's on the commercial side, but a real estate broker in general is a estate broker is a real estate broker is a licensed professional who has completed additional education and licensing required beyond those of a real estate agent. Brokers can work independently, manage their own real estate firm, and oversee other agents. Real estate developer. Real estate developer is a professional or company that acquires land, finance projects, and oversees the construction or renovation of residential, commercial, or industrial properties. Developers can create new real estate projects, manage the planning process, and either sell, lease, or operate the properties for profit. An appraiser, and I know that gentleman in the back, you're an appraiser, right? Yep. So an appraiser is a property appraiser is a licensed professional who assesses the value of a property based on various factors such as its location, conditions, size, and market trends. Appraisers provide objective, independent valuations to help determine the fair market value of property, which is used in transactions like buying, selling, refinancing, or property tax assessments. And then we have the mortgage loan officer. A mortgage loan officer, also known as a mortgage banker or loan originator, is a licensed professional who helps individuals and businesses secure financing for purchasing real estate. They can act as an intermediary between borrowers and lenders, guiding clients through the mortgage process and helping them choose the best loan products for their needs. And we have two more to go through. So the property inspector is a licensed professional who conducts thorough examination of a property, typically a home or building, to assess its condition. The inspector identifies any structural or functional issues, safety concerns, or areas needing repair or maintenance. And then finally, we have a real estate attorney. A real estate attorney is a licensed lawyer who specializes in legal matters related to real estate transactions such as buying, selling, leasing, or developing property. They provide legal advice, ensure compliance with laws, and help resolve disputes that arise during a real estate deal. So I just gave you the definition of all of these. Anybody interested in any of these or have any experience already? I know we do have the gentleman in the back, that's the appraiser, but anybody else have any questions or any thoughts about any of these? Okay, go ahead.
I'm like interested in, obviously my major is public policy and I'm interested in like the social impact field, specifically youth development. And through like my experiences, I've grown an interest in like ensuring like the development of like different programs for youth. And but I'm not sure what category that would fit in, whether it's like corporate real estate or I don't know. But
So there are programs, and Joshua's going to talk later about like first-time home buyer programs, and also there are financial literacy programs in general to help understand what it means to buy property, buy real estate, or just financial literacy in general. I think that may be what you're kind of describing, but yeah, there are different programs, and he's going to actually give some examples of those different programs later on that maybe you can reach out to and learn a little bit more about. Yeah. Any more questions? All right. We're gonna move right along. And next up is becoming a real estate professional. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Gray.
All right, let's give it up one time for John. He's gonna come back. We're tag teaming this presentation, so thank you all for working with us. We're trying to keep it dynamic, right? We know we're after lunch, so yeah, thank you for working with us. All right, so now let's understand what it takes to become a real estate professional. So how many people already have their licenses? I'm just curious. Perfect. So this will be all old information for you all. How many people are interested in becoming real estate agents? Perfect. All right, excellent. How many people have already attempted to take the real estate license, the licensing exam, or in the process? Anybody? Okay, good. Anybody just brand new to it? No knowledge of it at all. Perfect. Excellent, excellent. It's one-on-one, right? So we're gonna cover the basics. I have a graphic here, and you all please feel free to snap a photo of this. This is pretty much all the information you need to know. I'm gonna run through it. I'm gonna be mindful of the time, so go ahead and take a picture of it. Zoom in on it, we'll walk through each steps. So essentially it's a 4-step process, but it starts with your eligibility, right? So how many people are at least 18 years or older? Cool. That's step 1, right? You gotta make sure you have the age requirement. Step 2, how many people have a high school diploma or a GED? All right, so far so good. I should just say, keep your hand up and take it down. Background check. How many of you all will be able to successfully pass a background check? Excellent, excellent. That matters, right? And last but not least, how many people are lawfully present here in the United States? Excellent. You all meet the eligibility requirements. So far so good. So next up, we actually have education and training. So this is really where you will probably spend most of your time studying for it. So we have a pre-licensing part of it. So you're actually required by the Georgia Real Estate Commission to have 75 hours of pre-licensing education. So some of these courses can be online, some of them are in person, it's completely up to you. I always tell people who I'm mentoring, it depends on how you learn, right? Are you better in a group setting like this where other people are asking questions that might be more beneficial to you? Are you better when you can self-pace it on your own time? An online course might be better for you in that case. With these topics are going to cover everything from real estate law, the principles, and most importantly, the practices, okay? You're going to have, at the end of your 75 hours, you are going to be required to take a final exam. On that final exam, you have to make at least 72% or higher. So this is it's a really good way to kind of give you an understanding of what the state license exam is, because again, it's very comprehensive. It's going to go over everything. So next up, you're going to have the actual licensing exam. So the licensing exam is $121 per attempt. Right. So hopefully you take it one time and you only have to pay that fee once, right? But definitely be mindful that there is some investment in that. Secondly, the exam is formatted in 152 questions, and it's divided as a national portion and a state portion. Georgia, most states have reciprocity laws, so essentially, if you sit for the exam in one state, you likely will not have to sit for the exam in another state. You just have to, we'll talk about finding a broker in that state, but it's definitely state by state. Go ahead.
Is it international too?
No, so they internationally it's different, but in the continental United States, now some states that aren't, like for example Florida, if you think about Florida, they worry about a lot of flooding, right? So a lot of those buildings have to be built to certain codes. Same thing in California, they're concerned about earthquakes, so you have to be mindful that those might have separate portions, or their state style will be slightly different, right? And same thing with the passing score, you need at least a 72 or higher on both parts to get your license. This is a pass or fail. So if you pass, it's all good. They'll print out your license, so now go find a broker. If you fail, here in Georgia, they'll actually tell you which sections what questions you missed. They won't tell you what's the exact question, excuse me. They'll tell you how many you missed per section. So it gives you a kind of a study guide to which sections you need to focus on. A lot of students, I also do some tutoring for people in real estate. A lot of people struggle with the math portion. It's very rudimentary math. So as a real estate professional and agent, you have to know certain things like how many acres are in a square mile, right? That's definitely going to be something that's going to be an exam, right? Everybody shake their head. And you also want to be able to know area. So everything people say, I'm not good at math. Well, you need to have that very basic knowledge, some algebra in there, and being able to manipulate formulas. But the benefit of the exam, when you actually sit for the exam, they'll give you you can bring a calculator, and they'll give you scratch paper for the exam. So I always say, try to have a formula sheet where you have everything down, and try to memorize as much as you can. And as soon as you get into the exam room, just write down everything you can on your scratch paper, right? Because you want to make sure your mind is clear for the exam. And then finally, the test locations, so you always have to do it in person at the PSI locations. They're located all across the state, and you basically have to schedule for the exam. And be mindful, a lot of people want to study, and if they may pass. I know a lot of my mentees, they might have failed the exam before in the past, and they want to immediately reschedule. It's like, give yourself some time, make sure you have a solid understanding, because you want to be able to pass it in as few attempts as possible, because it's what? How much does it cost per attempt? Right. So I mean, if you have the money to burn, by all means, but look, let's be cost
What's
efficient.
the cost now?
Yes,
How much is it now?
121.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's only $50, $60, man?
Oh yeah. Okay.
2004.
Okay. Okay.
You said there's algebra in there now? 'Cause
Yeah.
I took there was no algebra.
Yeah. So and that's the other thing too. The different mix of questions. The test is it's an online test. I can't say if everybody has the same number of questions. So this person might have a formula question about how many square footage in this acre. Somebody else might have a plot map, and they have to identify sections on a map where the parcel of land is located. So it varies. Everybody has a different exam. So far, so good. All right, so next up, let's say the test went great. You passed, you got your license. So the next part, right, everybody's gonna get first attempt, right? That's it. So next off, you wanna find a sponsoring broker. So the broker is going to basically be your mentor. You're required by, again, the Georgia Real Estate Commission to find a broker to keep your license active. So you actually hang your license at this broker, and they'll be responsible for kind of checking all your work, right? So they're gonna identify, if you're working with buyers and sellers, any paperwork that they provide, they'll be that final check off to make sure that you're not making any errors, because they also have to adhere to the laws and the Georgia Real Estate Commission. And brokers there's another set of education they have to go through as well. And typically become a broker, you have to at least be a licensed real estate agent for at least 4 years, right? So most agents will move on to that broker role. Some agents will stay in that agent role just because once you become a broker, you're responsible for having a separate bank account. You have to do some accounting, some more financials along with that. So just keep that in mind should you decide to move up into that career path. So again, the broker's role, they're gonna provide guidance and support for you through the industry. The biggest things to consider, so this is so how many of you all know of what are some of the big brokers you can kind of think of? Keller Williams, who else? Okay, that's a good one. Who else? It's a big hot air balloon.
Oh, Remax.
Remax, okay, good job. Anybody else think of any really big ones? What's that?
Baker.
Yep. So all these big brokerages, they all have different things that they offer, right? So one of the things you want to consider, commission splits. So a lot of people will decide on a broker based on their commission split. Obviously, you want to make as much money as possible in the position, right? But you also want to be mindful, what other things are they offering? While commission split could be good, it can vary. It can be 70, 30, 50, 50. It really depends. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my broker, who it started as Solid Source Realty, and one of the reasons why I went with them because their commission fee is a flat structure, flat fee per transaction, and I really like that because I get more of my commission, correct? Some other people have different. Again, it really varies per brokerage. Technology. There are a lot of different types of brokers. Once again, you want to try to find somebody that offers you, or they're at least mindful of the latest and greatest technology, right? So again, I started with Solid Source. It's now HomeSmart, which is much larger and And one of the reasons they moved up to HomeSmart was because of the technology aspects. So I have access to a lot of tools that make my job easier as an agent, right? Another part of that is broker accessibility. If you're working with a larger broker, it's very likely that they'll have multiple brokers on call. So should you call you have a question that you need somebody to answer, they'll typically you call a number and somebody's there to pick up the phone for you. Versus a smaller broker who it might just be them. They might be a sole broker and they might have a few agents up under them. But typically on the smaller ones, the boutique side, the smallers, they are going to probably have to give you the most face time. But again, it depends on how you are. I like to learn on my own pace. I like to get out there and figure it out before I ask for help. So I took a chance with a much larger broker. Again, and so another thing to add, you can also be a part of teams. So if you join a brokerage, there are other agents who will, you all can team up on deals. So you all might have, so I know you all seen some of the real estate shows on Netflix, right? Yeah, HGTV maybe. So that's an example of like, they might have a single listing where, hey, who's gonna bring me a buyer for this listing? And they'll all work together to find a buyer for that. Same thing, if they're trying to sell a property. We need buyers to sell this property, so they might all work together to get it sold. Just some examples. So moving on, so let's say you've found your broker. After this, you are still required to have post-licensing education, right? So you're still learning. In this field, you're gonna constantly learn. So you're already doing good if you're here now. So you actually are required to have 25 hours of post-licensing education. And a lot of this is kind of reinforcing what you already studied, and it's easier to do it. You do have a time frame before you actually have to complete it, but it's best to kind of knock it out, right? And when you become a new licensed agent, especially with your broker will give you access to a lot of free courses. Some courses are free, some courses are paid, but it's easy to kind of knock those requirements out because you need to learn about what technology they offer, right? So it's easy to identify what you need to know and what's going to make you successful. And again, the other benefit of this is completely up to you. You can choose whatever course you want to take, whatever you study. There is a requirement on the continuing education side, but when you're post-licensing, you will not, your license will be inactive if you do not complete your post-license. So make sure you did get that done. All right, any questions so far? So far, so good? All right. Lastly is continuing education. So again, we are required to renew our licenses every 4 years. Part of that, and here in Georgia, some states have different ones, but again, we're speaking about Georgia, we're here in Georgia. You're required to have at least 36 hours of continuing education credits. So the agents that are here now, they're getting continuing education credits, myself included. Go ahead and sign your name with a paper. So basically, of that 36 hours, 3 of those hours need to be a licensing law or Georgia license law credit. Again, super easy to do. I can tell you the Georgia Real Estate Commission, every year they will make alterations to your purchase agreements. Any paperwork that you deal with day to day, they'll tweak and fine tune. So it's very easy to, at the beginning of the year, you just take that real estate license law and it'll be like updates to purchasing agreements, or pretty much they'll tell you all the changes that have been made. For, like I said, year over year they change it. So definitely take advantage of that. Like I said, usually a broker will give you access to it, and usually these are also free. So the renewal fee costs $125 to renew. If you do it by mail, but if you do it online, it's only $100. So keep that in mind. So every 4 years, and of course, if you're going to be a successful agent, you've attended this conference here all day, you have everything you need to know. So you're going to be able to pay that from your commission and all your sales, right? Right? Okay, perfect. Any questions about that before we move on? Good deal.
Joe.
Oh, yep, sorry.
I was just curious, so if you want to do your own team, is there another benefit, like some people have said resume builder?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So on the broker side, brokers, you are more likely to, you can accept higher rates of commission, right? So your split, again, if you have a couple of agents under you, you can set what that commission rate is. You can say, hey, I want to take 80 and give you 20. Of course, that's not always fair, but it really varies. But as a broker, you can set that, you can set up your own agency, and you can have agents up under you. You can also be a co-broker. You can join a larger brokerage, and that can be your sole duty. You can just answering questions as agents contact you. But you can really, that's even more entrepreneurial, I feel like, in my opinion, than just being a real estate agent. Because once you're a broker, it's all on you, right? You got to get your name out there. You're not necessarily hiring agents, but you're having people up under you responsible for them as well. So if they make a mistake, it's on you, right?
And sorry, just another question
Yep.
would be, so if it's within, let's say a team and it's like an associate broker, so they might have responsibility for people under them.
Yeah.
But yet usually their pay is 100% commission, so do you know if sometimes they get compensated extra for that responsibility?
Yes and no. Typically, brokers are allowed to do real estate deals as well, so they don't necessarily need an agent. So that's one way to get 100% commission. But again, you have more risks associated if you're just a full broker. What was part 2 of your question there?
Just the compensation, because
Yeah.
if they're not doing their own team, but they still have that extra work for people under them, I mean,
Yep.
do they get like hourly paid too sometimes?
So typically, some brokers, if they work for a company, if they're associate brokers, so they don't have their own firm, some could be paid through the company. So most of them are compensated in that way. If you're independent, you're likely relying on your own sales value. It's a good question, though.
As a broker, can you do both residential and commercial, or do you need like extra licensing to do commercial as well?
Yep, as Sid explained, there is a different processes learned in that commercial side. It's a completely different lanes. Of course, it's all in real estate and umbrella, but as you all have learned today, real estate has a lot of different avenues. So if you're working for a larger agency, they might have commercial brokers on staff. So there might be agents who are interested in that commercial. They might do commercial deals, so they can work exclusively with those. But most will have will be specialized on either. So the larger ones usually do both, but most of the smaller ones would just focus on a single one. Good question. Anything else? All right. So now let's talk about alternative career paths in real estate. So anything up here anybody has never seen before, or anything jumping out at you?
Surveyor, what's that?
What's that?
Surveyor, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll go through each one. I give you the definition and an example of what they do, right? So how many people have heard of wholesaling? You want to try to give me a definition for it? What do you think wholesaling is? Go for it.
So wholesaling, because actually, I've done this before. So
Okay.
like wholesaling is kind of like being like the middle person, and typically like the process is finding like a property or a piece of land. Like the one that I wholesaled last semester, it was a piece of land, and so I connected. I had someone reach out to me. Well, I reached out to them initially, and then they reached back out to me, told me that they wanted to sell, and then pretty much I kind of like facilitated the process, put it under contract with like the price that we agreed on, and then I had a few like Morehouse brothers who do like development from the ground up, and then I sold it to them. So
Very
you
nice.
just kind of sell kind of like the contract, and then you make the difference.
Okay, did everybody hear that? Okay, all right. So let me ask you this. Did you actually have to purchase the property?
I did not.
Correct. So that's the benefit of being a wholesaler. They actually don't spend money on purchasing the property. They're that intermediary between two parties, and they assign those contracts to an investor. So well done. Good job. Yeah, that's pretty major.
That is.
Yeah. Wasn't expecting that. But essentially, that's what they do. So they work with the investor and they get out of it before they become liable for it. So there's some risk associated with wholesaling. Next up, property management. So you all heard in the last session what a commercial property manager do. So what do you think a residential property manager does? Any takers?
Buy homes for residents
Not necessarily buying homes. What else?
or helping them.
Okay.
Is it maintaining?
What was that?
They manage the home for the homeowner.
There you go. So they're managing those properties for the owners. So they're dealing with tenants. They might go, they're re-signing leases for the tenants. They're going through that. They're screening the tenants. They're collecting rent. They're scheduling repairs. And they're ensuring that the tenants are upholding to the lease, right? So just said no pets. And the property manager stops by and they see you have a pet. They have to report that back to.
That's why you gotta hide that dog.
Well, I would say don't, look, that's a whole other thing, right? You don't want to risk getting your lease canceled or not renewed, so don't play with your housing. But very good, that's exactly what they do. So next up, real estate investor. So anybody have an idea what a real estate investor does?
That's a real estate flipping.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? So you can generate income from a different, various ways as a real estate investor. You can buy and hold. So this is one of our strategies, what we do at JJR Group. We buy and hold and we keep those properties and we rent them out. Or you can fix and flip. So that's what a lot of popular shows, people get in and get out. They buy the house, they renovate it, and then they sell it for a higher profit. Depending on what type of strategy you have, and again, it's important to have a strategy before you enter the space. All right, a surveyor. Who knows what a surveyor is? Go for it.
Survey the property line.
Yep. So a surveyor is, they identify the legal bounds of your property. They get called in pretty much all the time. So as you go out through your career, especially if it's like a new development, or really if you have land, large parcels of land, you want to be able to clearly identify where your property starts and where it begins. Especially if you have a neighbor who wants to put up a fence in between your properties, you want to know to what point their property starts and your property starts, or where that property line is. So a surveyor will come out and make that determination. So typically this is more so for, like I said, lots, agricultural land. Is really important to have a solid working knowledge of what a surveyor does. So obviously, in part two of that, when you're going through your real estate contracts, part of your purchasing agreement, you have to identify the legal description of the property. So that's where the surveyor comes in. They actually define the exact location. It's not just coordinates, it's a plat map. So there's the state, the county, and the district is all a big map of the tax district. They'll identify it based off the neighborhood. I should put some maps up here so you guys can take a look at that. All right, moving on. What about a general contractor? Anybody know what a general contractor is?
So typically, the general contractor estimates the after repairs or the repairs that you need on an investment property. So you'll have a general contractor come out and let's say, roof needs to be done, plumbing needs to be done. They will give an estimate of those repairs. And then based on those repair estimates, the bank will decide whether or not they will loan you a loan product to do those repairs. And the agent or the wholesaling agent working on the property will also do evaluation of the after repair value of the home, like how much is the home going to be worth once it's been repaired according to what the contractor says the budget is going to be.
Yep. And as a real estate professional, I think whatever path you decide to choose, it's good to have a good working knowledge of a good general contractor, right? All the time, right? These are going to be people they can really save you in a pinch, especially if you're working with a client and you can be close to the closing table, getting ready to go to the closing table, and a repair or their issue comes up. You want to be able to quickly refer some good people for your clients. So keep that in mind. And last, a few more. So we're on to real estate photographer. That's pretty set. Kind of speed through these. They are going to be help you with your listings, your marketing. You want to make sure you know that. We do it in-house at our company. But if you want to do it, you can do it yourself as well, but you want to make sure you have a good camera. You want to learn how to use that camera should you decide to do it yourself. If you know somebody who's good with marketing and pushing that out, that's the marketing manager. We'll talk about that later. A home stager. Have you all heard of a home stager? Know what they do?
Oh, just,
Interior designer?
Yep, yep, pretty much interior design. So it's easier to sell a property when it's staged, right? It's easier for people to come in, you might have an open house, and it's easier for them to identify or see themselves in the space if they say, hey, I see a couch in the living room. This must be a living room. There's a bedroom in this space, it must be a bed. This helps them visualize what the space is.
with that, like, how much extra does that, take on, like, cause you have to pay for the furniture and stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
is it, large?
So it really depends. So it depends on what angle you're going to approach. I think for us, for example, we actually will outsource it. So we'll give them a budget. Hey, home stager, here's your budget. Like, hook it up. Make it look good, right? And then you bring in your photographer, you take your pictures yourself. So most of the time, a good home stager will either keep the items or already have the items. They keep them in storage, or they might reuse items, from different properties. Some of them will let you leave the furniture in the space, and that your client wants to buy it, that can be negotiated as well. So that's a good question. And then last but not least, certainly marketing manager. So how many of you all are gurus on social media? There you go. So if you're gonna be a real estate professional, you need to be really good. It's an extremely competitive industry. So you wanna make sure you have a good presence online, right? So whether you wanna do old school, door-to-door, where you're doing your flyers, or your mailers, we call that part of farming. So when you're trying to get out new clients, if you have your online presence with social media, I think a lot of agents rushed to doing TikTok during the pandemic, and a lot of people saw productivity from that or saw a boost in their sales. But there are people who this is their 9 to 5. This is something they solely focus on, and trust me, we can definitely tell you, being social media is a job within itself. You got to be mindful of posting times, what type of content. You got to constantly generate content, but you got to make sure that people know who you are, right? Okay, so we got through that first part. Any questions about the alternative career paths? Okay, all right. Oh, sorry.
So how about asset management? For the career path in asset management.
Asset management. So I would say that is another career path. And basically with an asset manager, especially on the residential side, they might have a collection of properties, right? Some people treat a lot of the big, are you all familiar with, what are the big, Invitation Homes? You all heard of them? So it's a huge rental company. Redfin got into business as well. So instead, some of these are corporately owned properties where they might, instead of putting their money in the bank, they keep their money tied into those properties. So an asset manager might have a collection of properties, and they might just hold it. They might not necessarily rent it out either. It might just be a property on their books. It might be appreciating in value over time, and then they might make a decision to sell it, to pull that equity out, or they might use that money towards another purchase or to do something else within that business. So that is another good alternative as well. Yeah, good questions. Anything else? All right. All right, so let's talk about some essential skills for success. Networking and relationship building. So I'm gonna give you all a quick story. I'm gonna tell you all how we're here today in front of you. All right, so John and I have a mutual friend. This mutual friend is also an electrical engineer. I worked with him. He introduced me to Mr. Rod Baptiste, who has a financial literacy program where he actually goes out into high schools and he teaches financial literacy skills. He works for the Atlanta Federal Reserve. So they reached out to me and said, hey, I know you, at that time I was president of the Alumni Association at Mays High School. Said, hey, we would love to launch this program at Mays. Would you be able to help us? So I volunteered. Again, Cedric talked about the power of volunteering and investing your time into your community. I volunteered from that situation, from that meeting, and that is a program that's still going on to this day. But Rob reached out to me back in October and said, hey, I would love for you to sit on this panel speaking about real estate and how you got into it. So I'm an agent that came through the pandemic. So I studied for the real estate exam during the pandemic, and I was licensed during that time. So we were speaking about pivoting and basically finding different ways that John spoke about. You don't want to be reliant on one source of income, right? You want to be good at a few things, and especially if you can specialize in something, by all means, go do it, right? So I reached out to him, participated in that, and I actually met Mr. Dexter Warrior. He was also a panelist. So he reached out to me after the program and said, hey, I'm putting together this program, this conference. I would love for you all to come and speak here. Power networking, right? And we actually met at this mutual friend's Super Bowl party. So you gotta meet people, you gotta talk, right? So just wanna tell you that's relationship building. So that's a long kind of story about how we got here today, the importance of it, right? If you're gonna be in this industry, you definitely wanna make sure you spend time getting to know your fellow agents or anybody else who's in that career path that you wanna go. As Cedric talked about in his last, I've done deals with former classmates, high school and from Georgia State. We've been able to do business deals together, and it's really sweet when you can do that. Hey, you can call somebody up. I know you do this, you're good at this. I have friends who are home stagers, have other agents say, hey, I know you have a buyer who was interested in a property like this. So being able to have those connections with somebody you can quickly point out to your phone, extremely important. Sales and negotiation skills. How many of you all think you have good negotiating skills? Have you ever had to negotiate something? Okay, all right. So,
Working on it.
all right, there you go. So this is also something you can work on right here, right now. So you don't know, you really want to hone in on those skills, but what's important about it is when you get to the closing table, or even when you're working with, you want to be able to sell yourself. You got to have a good pitch for yourself, and you want to be able to negotiate, get the best deals for your clients, whether you're representing the buyer or the seller. You want to be able to make sure that you understand the power of negotiation. And one of my favorite classes at Georgia State, I took a class literally on negotiation. And they literally give us case studies, and we had to identify what would work best and develop plans for different scenarios. If this person comes back with a counter offer for this, what should be the next set of actions? So always plan out, this is the negotiating strategy, it's a whole science behind it, y'all. So you can really jump into the deep end with that. And last but certainly not least is financial literacy. You want to make sure that you have a good working knowledge of what it takes for, well, first off, you're representing a client, you want to make sure you have an understanding of what it takes for them to be comfortable with their purchase, right? You want to try to ensure that your clients don't have any buyer's remorse, where they've spent way too much money on a property and they've become house poor. Anybody know what heard of that term before? Know what it means? No? Okay. All right. So house poor is essentially you spent all your money into the deal of acquiring the house that now you can't furnish it. You're basically living in an empty canvas. And nothing wrong with that, but you want to make sure that you can, you want to be able to live comfortably afterwards. One second. All right. Did it come out? All right, there we go. John saved the day. All right. Any questions about this stuff? Go ahead.
So for negotiation, they often say you want to, give something way lower because your expectation is like towards the middle. So I guess you could call that a strategy, or there, like, what are your other favorite two, especially like when you're communicating electronically, like it can be, sometimes you don't want to rock the boat, you have like two of your best strategies.
I love that question. So first off, you can definitely write this down. Promise low, deliver high. That's what you're getting at. You want to make it so you know what you bring to the table. You know your value, right? Part two of that, you want to take that knowledge when you're negotiating. I'm a hybrid. I'm old school. I prefer, if I'm negotiating or something, I'll pick up the phone and talk to the agent. What's important for your client? Just get that. You can ask them. Someone's like, hey, my client has a timeline, XYZ. They'll tell you the biggest variables, or the biggest things that their client is considering. And from that, you can kind of structure your deals based off what's important to them. If it's a timeline issue, they might not necessarily want, they might want fewer days to close, right? Typically, most real estate transactions, 30 days. You can do it in less time. I can tell you, if depending on the property and how good you are as an agent, it takes a lot of organization for this. And you can also ask them, or let's say you can pick up the phone and call them. Part two, you can electronically communicate, but there's something called, when you present a counter offer, it's good before you type it all up, like I said, because we have an official offer has to come in on Georgia Real Estate Commission approved documents, right? So it's easier to talk through the deal on the phone before you write it up. So it's not official until, now you have verbal agreements, but verbal agreements are gonna stand up in court, right? Real estate is abides by the law, so it has to be physically in writing, so that's how you make it official. So let's say old school and being able to have that personal connection, being friendly, having those soft skills. If I know what soft skills are? Right. Being able to talk to somebody, I have a personal philosophy. We have so many forms of communication that we haven't specialized or haven't mastered a singular form. So just think about that, right? How often are you talking to the person? I hope you all meet each other in this room, because you might end up working with each other in the future. You just never know. It's a good question though. Any other questions on this? Okay. All right, and time's up. So, all right, I'll be back.
All right. Still staying mindful with time, we're gonna talk about how to build wealth with real estate. I mean, this is one of my favorite topics, to be honest with you. We're gonna touch on appreciation and equity, rental income and passive cash flow, and also house hacking and creative financing. So first we're gonna talk about appreciation. So appreciation is basically, the value that your asset, or if it's real estate, if it's a property or a house, is the value that it increases over time. So there are a couple of different ways of appreciation and equity. So initial equity, we're gonna start there. So let's say you buy a house, we're gonna make it simple numbers. Buy a house if you're gonna mortgage a house, let's start there. You're gonna mortgage a house for $100,000. Because most of you, seems like, will probably be first-time home buyers, we're gonna hope that you get the home buyer benefits of putting down, 5% down. So if it's a $100,000 house, you're gonna put $5,000 down? Yeah, $5,000 down on a $100,000 house. And basically, that $5,000, your down payment that you're putting down, that's your initial instant equity, because you've already paid that portion of the house, the value of the house. So that's already your initial instant equity that you have. If you were to sell it immediately right then, you could get that $5,000 back, right? So that's initial equity. Next, we're going to talk about appreciation in home value. So this is over time, which is what I discussed earlier. Over time, the market value of your home, how it may increase. It could also decrease, but we're gonna always hope that it increases over time. And so that increase in value that your home does over time, that's appreciation. Appreciation, like my example earlier with the first property that I purchased, bought it for $20,000, sold it for $80,000. That difference, that $60,000 difference, that was appreciation over time. It had nothing to do with the rent I collected or anything else. That was separate appreciation that was in that property. That was just by having it for that amount of years. I didn't do anything outside of, regular maintenance with it, with carpet and paint and stuff. But yeah, I didn't do anything else to make it appreciate in value. It's just the market and the time. But once again, it can be, the reason I was able to get that house for so cheap was because it depreciated so fastly when the economy tanked in 2008. And then thirdly, mortgage payments. So as you pay off your mortgage payments on your property, at first you're gonna start off paying a lot towards, a lot of it's gonna go towards like interest, and well, most of it's gonna go towards interest, I'll be honest with you. Also your mortgage payment, you have your escrow with your property taxes and your insurance and things like that, but also you pay principal. So you start off your mortgage payments paying a little bit towards principal, but as you continue over time, you're applying more towards principal and less towards interest. So that principal is what's also bringing down what you owe on the property, and that's also giving you more appreciation, or more equity, I should say, in the property. Let's see, next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about renting versus buying. So this is a graphic that Joshua and I came up with a couple of years ago to help kind of talk through the process of, deciding if you want to rent or buy. I will start this by saying there is no right or wrong answer. It is what works for you. Don't feel pressured or anything like that you have to do a certain thing, but there are options when it comes to renting versus buying. So we'll just go through this graphic really quickly. Are you planning on, so first question, are you planning on staying for 5 more years? If you are planning on staying 5 more years, maybe you can consider buying, because when you purchase a property, the reason why the 5 more years, or just trying to stay at a certain period of time, when you purchase a property, you pay a lot of upfront costs to close out that deal if you're gonna mortgage it, and you don't get that money back. All of those fees, bank fees for processing the loan and all of that stuff up front, you don't get any of that back. That is just a cost of you getting a mortgage. So it doesn't make sense if you're gonna keep having to, if you're not gonna plan on being there for, a extensive period of time, to pay all of those fees, because you're just wasting money at that point if you're not gonna keep the property that long. If you are going to, so yes, let's say you are gonna be there more than 5 years, okay, so something still consider. If you are, next question, are you financially stable? This is a question depending on your lifestyle. I love to travel. I find efficient ways to travel, but I know I love to travel. I know some people, they love to shop. I know some people, everyone has their different vices and their different things. But, making sure that you understand your budget, your lifestyle, your income, your expenses, so that you can understand how much you can afford in a house, or how much you can comfortably afford. Because you can base it off what you're getting, but you got to also make sure you keep in mind, what do I like to spend money on? Let me make sure I deduct that out every month. So this comes in handy when you are getting pre-approved for a property and you're talking to the banks. They're going to ask you for all your financial information, because they're going to, because a lot of times we're not realistic with ourselves for what we spend money on. But the bank, they're going to go through and they're going to check. If they're going to give you this loan, they want to make sure you can afford it. So they're going to analyze all of your expenses over like the past 3 or 6 months. To see how you've been spending your money, and they're gonna be like, hey, yes, so this is based on how you spend and what you make. This is what we're willing to give you a loan for. That is very important. And as Joshua will tell you, there are 2 different things. There's a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. The pre-approval is the one that really tells what you can afford. Pre-qualification, they haven't looked at anything. They're just saying, hey, you say you're interested in buying a house. You say you make this much money, potentially you can afford this much house, but they have not analyzed anything. Pre-approval, they go through the analyzing process, so that is what most realtors will tell you they want to see. They don't want to see your pre-qualification letter, they want to see your pre-approval letter, because they know that's been analyzed and this is what you can really afford. So making sure that you're financially stable. If you're financially stable, okay, so we really can see if we want to do this. The third question I should say, can you budget, and can your budget handle the mortgage with the taxes and also maintenance? So this is the big difference, owning a home versus renting an apartment or renting a property. Maintenance costs. We've had properties where, sometimes, there's an air conditioning situation going on, right? And you may have to, either get it replaced or get someone out there to repair it. And, as a renter, you're just gonna call the maintenance tech, they're gonna come out and fix it. You don't care what it costs, cause they're gonna fix it, and it's the property owner's responsibility to make sure that it's taken care of. But as an owner, that money comes out of your pocket. So this is something else that you have to consider. First of all, do you even like dealing with issues when they come up, right? That's the first question that I put out, because I have a very close friend, and she loves being able to call maintenance to come and take care of every little thing, from a light bulb to an air conditioning issue to just any little thing. She's gonna call her maintenance tech, but she likes that, so she likes renting. She's like, I don't want, she said if I had my own property, I would not want to deal with this stuff. I just like being able to call someone and not having to worry about extra money coming out of my pocket. But on the flip side of that, if you own the property, like I said, it does come out of your own expenses. But also, hey, if you've updated the HVAC system, you're adding equity to your house. You're adding value to your house. So it does come back on the back end, but it's like you do have to have that immediate expense. So if you are comfortable with that, then sure. It sounds like you answer all of those questions and you're saying yes to all of those things. Yes, maybe it is time for you to consider buying. But if any of those things you're saying no to, it is completely fine to rent. Now, my caveat here, once again, like I said, it's personal, depends on what you personally preference. But I will say this, even if you don't want to stay in your own residential house, I would still say consider buying an investment property and renting it out. And you have options when you do that. You can, if you don't like dealing with tenants or trying to find a tenant thing, you can get a property manager, property management company, I should say. With that, you can, you will pay a property management company a fee. It's normally between 10 and 15% a month, but they handle everything for you, and they're just sending you what's collected in rent, minus if there's any expenses. But the reason why I say still consider doing that, even if you don't want to personally stay in a property that you own, you have someone else paying for an asset for you. And, thinking long term, when you get into your retirement years, you let 20, 30 years go by and someone else has paid off the mortgage on this house, you own that free and clear to do whatever you want to. If you want to borrow against it, you want to, pay off your kids' student loan debts at that time, or finance a wedding, or just use it for your retirement. You have an asset that's paid off. So I always tell people, even if you don't want to personally stay in a property that you own, still consider buying an investment property. And if you don't want to deal with anything, get a property management company to manage it for you. Go ahead.
If I may, so one thing to keep in mind, when you buy a property, that's the minimum you're gonna pay for housing. If you rent, that's the maximum you're gonna pay for housing. Keep that in mind.
Good point. All right. Any questions? All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir. My name is Ronaldo Bailey. I'm a junior here at Georgia State studying finance.
Yes.
My question would be, I'm curious, what's you guys' take on, I guess, the state of the markets? Would you guys invest right now, or would you hold off?
You mean invest in real estate right now?
Yeah, invest into a multifamily asset or single family.
Okay, good question. So yes, the state of the current market right now, there's a lot of unknowns, right? We don't know what's happening or how it's gonna play out. I will say this, I'm always open to looking for deals. If I find a good deal, or if we find a good deal, we're gonna try to get it, regardless of what else is going on. If it makes sense, if the numbers make sense where we can make us a profit off of it, we're gonna try to go for it. And it's a lot of factors included with that. Interest rates. We closed on a property last year, but the numbers make sense. Even with the higher interest rates that we've experienced the last couple of years, the numbers still made sense. So we went ahead and executed that deal and got us another property. So yeah, it just comes down to looking at it, analyzing each property by property. What are you gonna make profit off of it based off of what the current interest rates are? How much can you rent it for? If it's multifamily, how many units? Multifamily, you multiplying it basically, right? Multiplying what you can potentially get. So yeah, it just depends on if the numbers make sense. Regardless of what's going on in the market, it just depends on if the numbers make sense. All right.
For your portfolio, I think I saw there guys own both condos and townhomes and then detached homes. So what is like an ideal capital structure? And then what kind of loan products appeal to your company the most?
Yeah, so, for the first part, yes, we've had various types of properties. Now, we have gotten away from the condo and townhome situation. Most importantly, because there's a lot of, they come with HOAs. Single family homes can come with HOAs too, but not all. But those definitely come with HOAs. So a lot of them have rent restrictions and a lot of extra tape, red tape that you have to go through with them. So we kind of stay away from those properties now. But as far as right now, what is our preferred, what do we mostly have right now? We mostly have single family homes, and most of them are in Southwest Atlanta, and they are older homes. I think the youngest, the most recent home we have was built in 1975. But they're in older established neighborhoods, very quiet neighborhoods. They're great for renting, great for families, and mature lawns and everything like that. So that's what we've been targeting, but that's what we have been purchasing lately. But our next step is multifamily. Yeah, all right, yes.
Like Cascade?
Yeah, it's in that area, yep. All in Southwest Atlanta area, yep.
And do you do a lot of like creative financing?
I won't say we do a lot of it, but we have done creative financing. We've done crowdfunding. We've gotten private investors that we pay back and things like that. So yeah, we have done it. Yep. But we have mortgages on most of our properties now. Yep. Yep. You have another question? Oh, you have a
I
question.
just wanted to add to the young man who had asked that question.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
I just had one more. So how much, for your portfolio, how much percent debt to equity would you say is acceptable? Like where you wouldn't cross the line and you're fearful of like possibly defaulting on some of the payments?
So, okay, so I'll answer it this way. All of our properties are rented out. And granted, I'll say this, we had the discussion earlier about working with the housing authority. The good thing about working with the housing authority, like I said, we get to negotiate price, make sure it's affordable, we provide great clean housing, but they guarantee rent. During the recession, a lot of investors experienced, people that they had rented to that, everyday people that work and pay for their rent out of their paycheck. A lot of people lost jobs, and a lot of people defaulted on paying their rent. So those investors, and there was a moratorium that was put out where you could not evict people and things like that. So the investors were stuck. If they had a mortgage, you still had to pay that mortgage, even though you couldn't do anything about the person that was still in your house that wasn't paying rent. We didn't experience that because the housing authority, it's a federal program. Those payments come through regardless. They're gonna come through every month. So we kind of mitigate that risk by having our properties with the housing authority because those are guaranteed payments. Yeah, great question.
Great question.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
If in this current market, those funds got cut, how would y'all do?
If they got cut, we would have to we'll have to have another option. Well, we'll be at the point where we're like, okay, are we gonna keep the property or are we gonna rent it out traditionally? I mean, there are other options. I mean, we have Airbnb, we have different things. So we always try to keep different options in our back pocket. But yeah, that's the thing. You have to be able to pivot in real estate. And with any and everything, we have experienced a lot of different things that we never thought we would experience, and you have to be able to pivot. But yes, we do have other options in our back pocket that we have either already done or things that we've explored and done some research on that, like maybe that's something we can do. Yep. Any other questions? That's a great question too. All right, so we're gonna continue on. Next topic, we're gonna discuss house hacking, which is kind of fun. I like talking about the idea of house hacking, especially with first-time home buyers and college students, because if I was able to go back, I would probably do house hacking for my first property, because there's so many benefits to it. So first, let's define house hacking. House hacking is a real estate strategy where homeowners rent out a portion of their property to generate income to help cover the mortgage or other housing-related expenses. This can be a way to reduce living costs, build wealth, or create passive income. House hacking is popular among first-time homebuyers, real estate investors, and others looking to offset their living expenses. So house hacking, the reason why I like the idea, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Just really quickly,
Mhm.
I apologize for interrupting, but if you haven't already completed your blue sheet for your continuing education credits, go ahead and fill that out. If you need to step out, the sign up sheet is in the back, in the table. The person that's collecting those, so you can get your credit, will be leaving in about 5 minutes. And I want to make sure everybody gets
Yes.
their time, but I didn't want to pause you, so you can still keep talking
Yeah.
and chatting. I just wanted to make that announcement since she's leaving, and then when y'all are finished, we have a reception in the, banquet hall.
Okay, perfect, thank you very much. All right, so we're wrapping up anyway. So yeah, so house hacking, I'll just go through a couple of these house hacking techniques. Traditional house hack, when you purchase a multifamily, you stay in one unit, you rent out the other units to other people. I think this is a great idea for someone that's a first-time home buyer. You get all those tax benefits, you get all those incentives where you have the low down payment that you put down. They work with you with mortgage rates and things like that. So like I said, if I could do it over again, my first property would have been a multifamily. I would have stayed in one unit and rented out the other units. And you can still, I can still do it now as well. And then the second one is, they call it living room / rent by room. This is just where you rent out if you want to rent out a room in your property. This is another way that, a great way to make money. It's similar to Airbnb, like you can sometimes rent a room on Airbnb. So that's another strategy. The third one is trailer life. Trailer life is when you purchase a quality camper, park it in your front driveway, and you rent out the house. So you're staying in the trailer, you're renting out your house. Hey, always think outside the box. Because you just, like I said, the trailers are very nice these days. And if you got a big enough lot, you can be nice and comfortably separated, and someone else, once again, is paying off that asset of your house, if you're open to that idea. And the last one is luxurious house hacking. This is when you purchase a property with an additional dwelling unit. So basically, it's 2 units on one property, 2 separate units on one property. You stay in one unit, and they stay, I think, a lot of times they call it the mother-in-law suite that you have in the backyard. You can stay in that, and you let someone else stay in the primary property on the property. And like I said, I just love the idea of house hacking because I've come to the realization that you're gonna have expenses in life, right? But really, if you think about the ideas of house hacking, you don't have to pay for housing. Right? Because if you buy a multifamily and you stay in one unit, let's say it's a triplex and the other 2 units are rented out, hopefully if the numbers make sense, like I was talking earlier, their rent is going to also pay what your portion of rent or to cover the mortgage would be. So they're covering that, and hopefully you got a little extra, so if there's any expenses, they're covering that. So that way you're not paying for your own housing. Everyone else that's staying around you is paying. So that's why I say it's a great way to build equity and to move forward. But yeah, it's just great. I just love house hacking. So that is it for me, and I'm gonna bring Mr. Gray back up to close us out.
All right, you all. I'll run through this because I know we're kind of coming up on time. Feel free to take a picture of this. This is basically about one of the best programs for new homeowners or first-time home buyers is the FHA loan. So these are government-backed loans that the biggest benefit of it is you pay 3.5% down payment, opposed from the 20%, which is for conventional loans. So you can enter the industry or you can start investing at a much lower rate. They also are more lenient as far as credit scores are required. As of now, most FHA loans are 580 or higher credit score, so keep that in mind. One thing about these loans is they come with private mortgage insurance. So has anybody heard of that term before by chance? Okay. All right, so private mortgage insurance is required when lenders on conventional loans, private mortgage insurance is required when borrowers put down less than 20% of the home's purchase price. So it protects the lender if the borrower defaults on the payments. Make sense? So essentially, when you put less than 20% of the home value, PMI is added to your monthly cost, is rolled into your mortgage payment, and it will actually fall off after you have 20% equity in your property. So again, most conventional loans, the down payment is 20%. So once you get to that 20% threshold, PMI drops off. So you actually see lower mortgage payments. These loans are only for owner occupied, so you can't necessarily say I'm getting an FHA loan and then you decide to move across town. That's gonna be a problem. So make sure it's all for owner occupied property. So what they're trying to do is they really wanna encourage those first time homeowners to be comfortable in their space and physically live in that community. Any questions about this? Okay. So next up, we just wanna highlight, so this is some of the most popular home buying programs. Feel free to take a picture of this. It's definitely not comprehensive with everything that's out there. So these are gonna be, so cities, counties, and organizations, they all offer different down payment assistance programs. Since we're right here in Atlanta, Invest Atlanta has some of the most popular ones. I'll just point out one here real quick, Vine City Renaissance Initiative. So Vine City is right across the street. So home buyers that meet income qualifications and plan to stay for 5 or more years in a Vine City home, they'll actually get $20,000 towards down payment down payment and closing costs. So up front, you have to put less down already, and then toward the back end. So it's very possible that you can walk away without putting any money of your own money up front. So who likes the sound of that, right? But again, as you can see, a lot of these programs, they can be for a certain area that you live in. They can be for, the requirement, you have to live in that area for a certain amount of time before you move out. And then one of the really big ones, since we're also here in Georgia, is the Georgia Dream Homeowners Program. So this is something I definitely say or present to a lot of my first time clients, home buying clients. You put 5% of the purchase price, and the maximum they give you up to $10,000. So it's really which is going to be 5% of the purchase price of the home, or the maximum $10K. So a lot of people like this as well, because again, you can buy a property anywhere in Georgia. So as a new agent, once you become licensed, you want to do this research for your clients. You want to at least try to offer them some programs, or at least point them to some resources. So Invest Atlanta and Georgia Dream are good ones. Any questions about that? Go for it.
Do you have to pay back that $20,000 or not?
So some do have that requirement. If you violate it, so for example, if you don't stay in that property for 5 years, for example, with Divine City, they might ask you to pay back the money.
But if I fulfill like my part at the end, I don't have to pay back the $20,000, right?
What's that?
If I like do my part, I don't have to pay back that $20,000.
Yeah, if you're following everything in accordance, then you should be good to go. All right, so we have 3 more slides, y'all. So the home buying process. Who's familiar with the entire home buying process? Feel free to snap a picture too. I'll run through this as well. So you're gonna find a good real estate agent or a realtor, and I always ask my clients before they approach me, before we sign anything, go ahead and get your pre-approval letter, right? So John talked about the difference between pre-approval and a pre-qualification. The biggest thing with the pre-approval letter is they have already looked at your financial statements. It's always best to either go with a credit union. If you bank with a credit union, they typically have better interest rates than your traditional banks. But again, whoever you do the most, your traditional banking with. And I would say even before you find a realtor and all this, I skipped a step, excuse me, it's not on here. You want to participate in a first-time homebuyers workshop, right? So during that process, it's usually an 8-hour course. Most of them are free, and they're going to tell you everything you need to know about the home buying process. And one of the benefits of those programs is they're going to present you with a certificate. So that certificate is going to make you more knowledgeable of the process. And there's scientific research that most people who participate in these programs are less likely to default on their houses. So certainly take advantage of it, because again, as a real estate agent, you want to be able to offer these or suggest some of these programs to your potential clients, right? So you've gotten that pre-approval. Once you go house hunting, so this is where all the HGTV makes it look so easy, right? Like you looked at 3 choices, boom. House hunting, it can be really fun, especially if you have clients who are excited. But the biggest thing, if you're approaching this from an investor standpoint, for most people, home purchase is the largest expense they'll ever make in their life, right? So it can be very emotional for them. You as an agent, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're considering the financial considerations. You're making sure they understand, okay, yes, you can live in this community, but this HOA is XYZ, right? You need to take that in consideration when you're thinking about the additional expenses you're paying moving forward. So you find your dream home, you find your clients your dream home, then it's time to make an offer. So this is you as an agent, you have to negotiate, you put your negotiating skills to use. And again, if you're buying the property on your own, you wanna make sure that that's a deal that both parties walk away from the table pleased, right? You don't wanna feel like you just got into a fight. I'm telling you, it can be some really rough deals out there, so you wanna make sure that both sides of the table are happy. So once you place an offer on a house, now it's considered to be under contract. So let's say the seller accepts your offer, you become under contract. So when you're under contract, this is when you have a certain amount of due diligence days. So typically, they can be on average about 7. You're doing more or less than that. Do you do more or less than that? Anybody do more or less?
Between 3 and 7.
3 and
Right
7?
now, since I think during COVID days it was only 3.
Yeah,
Did you get that?
right.
Now what I'm saying is now people are giving 7.
Mhm.
Now we're shifting toward a buyer market. So
Yep.
we're giving.
Give more time.
I didn't hear the question.
I was saying, how many due diligence days are you doing these days?
Yeah, 7 is the
Yeah, yeah. So during your due diligence, this is when, again, so Georgia is a buyer beware state, so it's completely up to your client whether or not they have a home inspector come in, and the home inspector is gonna check the systems of the house. So the 3 major ones: plumbing, electrical, and then the HVAC system, right? So they're gonna make sure all these are working. So again, if you have a good home inspector that you can recommend them, most can get it done within 24 hours. So if you have 3 days of due diligence, no problem, right? Same day in and out. But you definitely, it's an expense required. They all have different tiers, so they can shop around for the best home inspector. But you wanna make sure as an agent, you have at least, I always say, I try to refer all my clients to at least 3 different ones, right? And minimum 3. After that, it's a requirement for any real estate purchase in America, you have to have insurance. So this is when your client can shop around for home insurance or property insurance quotes, and they need this before they get to the closing table. At the closing table, this is where both sides, the buyers and sellers, they review all the agreements, and their ownership is transferred legally to the other party. So when you have a good closing, it's all said and done. Typically, 30 days is kind of average. I can tell you, and John, I'm sure the other agents in the room, it's very rare that, depending on what your closing attorneys are, it's very rare that they get it done in that 30 days. I think most ideal they can, but sometimes that will extend your timeline, depending on, I've had a client make a purchase weeks before a closing. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you have to explain everything you do, like you're under scrutiny, right? Go ahead.
They'll put the closing date for the 30th or the 1st.
Yes, right.
In your experience,
Everybody like 30th or the 1st.
Uh-huh.
That's when everything does the closing.
Yep.
in your experience, what are cause okay, let's say car salesman, they can give the potential buyer test drive. So in your experience, what's things realtors could go out of the box to really sell the house?
Open houses. I think open houses are really popular. Open houses are really popular where you invite potential buyers to come look at a space. So this is if you're the listing agent. If you're representing a client, you might have already identified. I always try to curate what my clients want based off what they ask. And I try to only show them those properties. Financial considerations, I have this all broken down. So again, these are things that you want your clients to consider. They might not have an understanding of it, especially if it's their first time. You want to try to make sure that you're at least speaking to them about the potential costs. All right. And the second to last slide, practical resources. I just want to impart you all on some books. You can write them down. I didn't put them up here. For me, it's important for you all to change your mindset about investing. So some of my favorite books, The Millionaire Next Door. How many of you have read that already? Excellent book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Anybody read that? Good books. I also want you all to consider, I'm missing one other book here. Building Atlanta, Herman J. Russell. So anybody know who Herman J. Russell is? All right, he built a lot of Atlanta skyline. So he was, I guess, before T. Dallas, before T. Dallas made his stamp on Atlanta, Herman J. Russell was the first kind of to do it. So definitely check those books out. I think it's good for you all to have some historical knowledge of real estate in Atlanta. As far as podcasts, we're big fans of the Bigger Pockets podcast. So how many, everybody, I see some heads went up. So Bigger Pockets is, think of it like a social platform for real estate professionals. Definitely go on there. It's easy to interact and you can learn a lot of different things. You can learn from people's experiences. As far as shadowing, you definitely want to try to shadow some professionals. So Cedric talked about in the last session about reaching out to people and, hey, can you be my mentor? Can I shadow you? Can I spend a day with you? Can spend some time with you to understand what it takes to be in your position? And certainly, last but not least, there are so many local meetups and communities. John and I, we'll go to there are monthly. You can just a good opportunity to shake some hands, pass out some cards, but making meaningful connections, right? You want to go with an objective. I want to meet this type of person, this type of person. These people it's good to quickly refer back, hey, I have this person's business card, or I've connected with them on LinkedIn, and I can further my effectiveness. Internships, some brokers and real estate firms do offer internships. Definitely check those out if they're available. And then last but not least, create a real estate plan. Depending on where you want to go in this industry, you want to make sure you have short-term and long-term goals identified. You want to have an entry strategy. And y'all, that was it. Thank you. Thank you all so much for your time. We finished. Okay. Any questions? I'll show this slide too. So definitely connect with us. QR code will take you right to our website. We have a form on there if you want to get more information. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Shameless plug, we do have student housing available. If anybody's looking for student housing, we do have it available. We also have hiring opportunities as well. People looking for any part-time work. And am I missing anything else?
No, I think that's it for that
That's pretty much
slide.
it.
Back to the networking groups, you can easily find a lot of them on Eventbrite. That's
Yes.
a good place. And
Eventbrite.
Facebook, you can look on Facebook for different groups as well to join as well.
All right, thank you all for your
Thank you.
attention.
Yep,
Good
thank you,
questions.
everyone.
Great questions.
All right, have a great day.
Thank you.
So